There's one thing that art does that nothing else can do in this world, is that two people can stand in front of a painting from completely different walks of life, and they can talk about it, and they can share their ideas, and they can agree or disagree, and they walk away taking something back from that. So it's a unifying force, and I think that's what really kind of drives me. My name is Karen Caldwell. I'm an abstract and abstract figurative painter. I was born in London, grew up between London and Barbados, and I now live in Minneapolis. So for me, when you look at the mask motifs, you will see African-inspired masks, and that is 100% correct, but they actually have a slightly deeper meaning. Carnival, particularly across the Eastern Caribbean, started as a form of celebration, but also resistance. Slaves, when they had some free time, would develop these masks based on kind of like the masquerades that they would see in the masters' houses, and they would create their own masks and tell their own stories through it. And a lot of the time, lots of the resistance and the rebellions actually happened under the guise of carnival. That's a symbol of our freedom. I am a trained sociologist, so it underpins, I would say, probably 98 to 99% of my work. I like the concept of ideologies, playing around with theories. There's no right and wrong answer. Circumstance shapes the narrative. But life is different fragments that come together, right? So it's all these interconnected pieces that come to form who we are and shape the way that we look at life. You know, my experience and your experience in the same space will be completely different based on our upbringing, based on our thought processes, based on our beliefs, based on our interactions that we had during the day, based on what we were taught at school. So all of these different things show that we occupy the same space but in different ways. And that's what I really like to look at in my pieces. When you stand in front of a painting, you know, you interpret it in a completely different way than I do, and I purposely do that, and I keep it as subjective as possible so that you can have the experience based on your own understanding of the world. And that interweaves with the spiritual aspect of it as well. I have one that you will see at the exhibition that looks as a woman when she's breastfeeding. When you look into her eyes, that tells a story. Now you can visually see, and it's very obvious that she's a black woman, but I've taken away the actual skin tones, and all the colours that I use, when they mix together, they make black, and the idea of that there's power in unity. So I call it my unity palette. And the idea for that is because I want people to look past the exterior and focus on what is going on with the subject in the picture. 2018 was a big year for me. It was a year that I became an artist. I always wanted to be an artist. What kind of artist, I didn't know. My purpose was discovered in 2018. Everything aligned to make me know that this was a path that I'm supposed to be doing. And I feel that I have a responsibility to tell stories through my art as well. And actually, that's funny, I wouldn't call myself an artist in 2018. It wasn't until maybe 2019 when I had a conversation with my now husband that he kind of like helped me see that the way I frame and talk about myself is also going to help me, you know, move forward in life. And this happened over business cards. And I was on the phone to my husband, I'm like, what should I put on these business cards? And he's like, put artist, you create art, so you're an artist. It took an hour and a half to convince me to put artist on the card. And there's something that happened in that time since I accepted that it's now fully become who I am. And now I see myself primarily as an artist first and everything else after in terms of like what I do. It's almost like saying that out loud and accepting that label has taken me on a completely different trajectory. And it's made me view my practice in a different way. Now I feel like I have Karen who expresses herself on the canvas, who expresses herself through paint, who has stories to tell, who feels like she has a responsibility to bring highlights to certain issues. There's one particular piece, it's called The Separation of Self. And the idea, and again, it's taken from my husband's book, somebody is caught between who they were and who they are trying to become or who they need to become. It can feel very uncomfortable. So the painting that I have depicts a person in a slightly contorted, almost like a dance pose, and they're pulling themselves up. And he's in between either accepting it or working towards it, but he still has the power there, he's pulling himself through. I am a woman of faith. I believe that if you speak and listen and ask, things happen in the way that they're supposed to. You just have to be in a space to be receptive and go and do what you hear. And sometimes fear stops that. One thing that I've learned in this whole journey, even how I came to America, is that sometimes you just have to relax and listen to the voice. When you ask for something and it comes to you, you need to take it, even if it feels uncomfortable, because then that leads you to the next stage of where you're supposed to be.